You're listening to another episode of Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. This is the place where you're entitled to Brad's opinion. And now for your host, Brad Allard.
But howdy, y'all. That's good. Since we're talking about Western Swing, I'm going to get in the mood. I have Sherry McKenzie's favorite musician, Joey McKenzie, here right now. And he plays a style of music I love. And, and if you had any class and taste, you'd love it too. Western Swing. It's the best. It's one of the greatest stuff. And I love Western Swing, not just because of the style of music, but just the emotions it brings up. America, Texas, greatness. And Mr. McKenzie here has played with a lot of people. And it's I'm very honored to have you on the show, sir.
Well, thanks for having me, Brad. I've been looking forward to it.
Well, I appreciate it. And I don't know where to start. I mean, when I first heard Western Swing, I was in my dad's car. And like a bunch of teenagers, I was like, what is this? Let's play some Nugent, Dad. Or where's my Aerosmith or whatever. And then, but no, my car, my radio was his motto. And so I'd listen to plenty of Merle and all the great classics, Ernest Tubb and Lefty Frizzell and whatnot. So, and then I guess as I got older, it must have stuck in my mind somewhere.
Came around to your dad's way of thinking.
Yeah,
huh?
Well, he got a lot smarter as I got older.
Yeah.
So, and I really, really do endorse it. It's a great style of music, and we're going to hear some great stories. I want to run through the sponsors real quick so we can get to the good stuff, so to speak, because I got to pay bills. You know the drill. Anyway, you live here in Burleson, though, right?
I do.
Okay, you may know these businesses. CrossFit Burleson, 317 Southwest Wilshire, behind that Stone Soup Cafe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and, it's a pretty stiff workout, but they have plans. They have trainers. They have the whole 9 yards, so it's no big deal at all. They also have, membership plans. That's why I got distracted here by a comment, but there you go. Also, thank you to Shandy Stocksdale. I'd like to take a moment here. She, as you know, ran for a school board race and unfortunately did not win, but she wanted me to personally thank all y'all for your support and your help and she's very honored by it, and she wishes Dallas Owen nothing but the best. She's going to be behind her 100%, as will I. So thank you, Shandy, for what you're doing. But she's also real estate, and she's handling some Allard real estate right now, so thank you very much. And then our mutual friend, Otto. This is how we got acquainted in the first place, is that Otto said, you got to get this guy in the show. And I said, well, anytime. And so Otto made it happen, because Otto is very eclectic in his music. The first time I met Otto is when somebody put us together as a possible sponsor. And I hadn't met him before, so I go to his joint, and I liked him within 30 seconds, And we started...
Absolutely.
Well, we started talking about blues music, which he really likes. I mentioned that, and he lit up on that. And so, we've been good friends ever since. And so I'm sure you go hang out there some.
I was there this morning.
Yeah.
As I am most mornings.
Really? Are you? I'm there pretty often. I'll be there Thursday morning. I have men in my Sunday school class get together every other week. And... what I like about it is that I've become acquainted with the staff. You don't get that all the time.
Oh, yeah. Great staff, great food. Otto and Monica, they know how to do it.
They really do. Also, maybe this is a place you've also been, Wild Cigar and Culture, over on the Standard. Get you a cigar, get you a drink. I know that you're probably unfamiliar with playing in a bar, but maybe. How many bars do you think you played in? You wouldn't know. They serve alcohol at this place? How many bars do you think you've played in your lifetime? More than a few?
Probably a few hundred.
Okay. Well,
Not as much these days, but boy, back in the day, I might be playing a bar or two every day on the weekends especially.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is a pretty nice bar. I don't know if you've been there, but if you like a decent shot, and it has a good whiskey collection and whatnot. And I don't know if you smoke cigars, but you probably know people that do. It's a good place to go.
I smoke 3 or 4 a year. And enjoy them.
Yeah, well, this is a good place to do it, because it's not just like, here's our shelf of cigars. They got tobacconists. It's in a humidor, and it's really fancy. Chris really gets he takes his cigars pretty seriously. Also, Tiffany Nico with Local Life, that came out last week, and she always has great stuff in it. Great ads. Good place to advertise. I'd like to think this is a good place to advertise, but, Tiffany got me beat, I have to admit, because she goes to 30,000 homes directly, and it's affordable, and it's quality work. And so if you're looking to advertise somewhere locally, that's a good place to do it. And got several others. Here's one. We're going to go ahead and run through them all. Okay, thank you, Taylor. Southern Gym. this is an interesting place. You got to take Sherry up there. You ever been to this place?
No.
It's on the top of the Windmiller building, and they're moving down to the bottom floor. So next time you're driving down Hidden Creek, you pass the baseball fields and you see that you'll see the sign at the bottom. They're supposed to be in there in about 2 weeks.
Oh.
They're on the 3rd floor now. My wife works here too. So, but Gayla Moores is the owner, and she loves this music. I told her about it, and that you're going to be in the show. And she's a good old Texas gal, hunts, fish, the whole thing.
All right.
Likes this kind of music. So she was really excited to have you on the show. And she also has really great stuff. And so when's your anniversary?
It is May the 30th.
Mine's May 28th, and I've already been told where I'm going to be May 28th, so there you go. But except that's a Sunday, actually, but maybe the day before. Well, it's a good place to kind of peruse and browse. And what I like about it also, I really compliment her, because, you've been in places where it's mostly the wives that do the looking and the men to stand around. She's going to have a place off to the side for the men to, have a Dr. Pepper or a beer and watch the ball game while they shop. So I thought, man, that's Gayla, you're on top of your game with that.
Absolutely. I'll have to take Sherry by there.
You betcha. Taylor, I'm not getting a link yet. Is it just my phone's real slow? Probably is. All right. Also, First Do Detailing. Come detail your car. We're at your place of business. In fact, they're going to be doing Gayla's car on Thursday. I was just told. First Do Detailing is run by a young man named Caleb Patino at 817-776-0478. He'll come to your house or your place of business, so you don't have to do anything but just meet him, give him the keys, and go back to business. And he does really good work, because I've had several friends have used them, and they say their cars look better than when they bought them, which tells you something about my friends, maybe. I don't know. Also, thank you to Old Pro Roofing. John Williams is a roofing specialist for this area, 817-734-2756. We've been dodging bad weather, but we're not going to be able to dodge it forever. So, y'all need to give him a look out for it, because John Williams will come out and give you a fair deal, a fair price. So there you go.
Yeah, Old Pro's done a little roofing at my house.
Have they now?
Absolutely.
There you go. See, it's interesting, because I've had a lot of guests, and they'll say, "Hey, I know those people," because it is a local podcast. I'd like to think that Joe Rogan's worried about me, but I don't think he is. But anyway, I hear him sharing it with the various groups in the community. All right, good. Anyway, you're all shared, so got multiple outlets. All right. Also, thank you to Texas Farm Bureau. Melissa Harmon's my agent, and she does really good work. 682-804-0534, very godly woman. So, you're going to get the truth. Sometimes insurance people want to sell you stuff, but she's like, if I can't beat it, I won't tell you that I can beat it. And I gave her my insurance to look over, and I had a pretty good insurance company, nothing wrong with it. And she said, she saved me some money, and she got me, lower premiums. So it helped.
Brad, same story with me. We had what we thought was pretty good insurance, contacted Texas Farm Bureau, and saved me a lot of money. We've been with them now for several years.
Well, I just got on them with last year, and I got about a $600 discount on my home insurance, and it was upgraded. So it wasn't like I was just buying something I already had cheaper. I got better coverage for about $50 a month less. And so that's a good deal. I need the $50.
Absolutely. Baby needs new shoes.
Well, I could use some new boots. These are pretty old. I got like 2 pairs now. But, and I think we have one more. Yes, we do. Stop Restoration with Lisa and Moore Smith. They're here locally. They're right near the Chisholm Trail. If they had any damage with the storm we had a couple of nights ago, and water damage, they can help you with that. Old Pro can help you with the roofing. They kind of work together in a lot of ways. Anyway, if you had any damage for any reason, like water damage, they can help you with that. Or if you had a hot water leak, or you had a toilet leak or something like that, dishwasher leak, and you don't even know it sometimes. It's behind the wall, and you find out it's too late. Or maybe your bathroom caulking isn't good, and you find out you got all this mold by it, and you just can't pick up the phone and call anybody to get rid of mold. You have to be certified to do it, and they are. And it's a hard certification to get from what I've been told. So anyway, thank you to Lisa and Morris. We do have a couple of nonprofits, not today, but tomorrow, the rest of this week. I'll kind of alert you on that. We have Crazy 8 Ministries tomorrow, and then Next Step Women's Center on Thursday. So you want to check out those, because they all got stuff going on. Well, I'd like to play with some I saw on YouTube, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is Cotton Patch Rag. Do you have that booted up there, Taylor? He's so good. He's got just always ready in the bullpen.
Yeah.
about a little of that cotton patch rag?
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Taylor. That's really good stuff. I mean, it really is. You know, I like driving around town with that because it really is down home, is what my dad would call it. Now, you teach fiddle players. Is that one of your students, the lady in the video?
No, actually, you know, but we've known each other for years, and she was in the Flyers for Western Flyers, my band, for 3 years. And her name's Katie Glassman. She's from up in Denver, Colorado.
But you, like I mentioned, you do teach a lot. Otto told me you have like students all over the world practically teaching how to play the fiddle.
Yeah, you know, that's something that I've always loved to do. My wife and I are both fiddle teachers. And, you know, I grew up in Oregon. I've been living in Burleson for the last 32 or 33 years. But I started learning to play in Oregon. And I was really drawn to the Texas style of playing.
It's interesting because Ray Benson's from Pennsylvania, asleep at the wheel.
Absolutely.
And it sounds like you have a similar story.
Well, we do, because I think we got interested in Western swing and Texas music, and you realize that you're in the wrong place to really to really soak it up. So when I was, I guess I was about 17 or 18 years old, I bought a Cadillac for $500.
I'm sure it was a beauty.
It was, actually. You know, it was, I remember it was in the classified ads. A guy wanted $1,000. I said, would you take $500? He said, no. And he said, it's too nice. And I called him back a couple weeks later. Would you take $500? It's all I have. And eventually I wore him down. He said, fine, come get it.
Yeah.
And then I drove that thing to Texas several times and to meet my heroes. And I would just show up, you know, sometimes at the doorstep, and I'd have recording equipment that I carried around, kind of doing field recordings. And so I got to learn and meet and be friends with my heroes, musical heroes, and mentors.
Who were those heroes? I mean, you mentioned that already. Who were your heroes?
Well, you know, Johnny Gimbel was one of my heroes, the great Texas fiddle player.
Right.
Multiple Grammy winner and studio player. And
you ever meet Leon McAuliffe?
I never met Leon McAuliffe.
Okay.
But it was just a little before my time.
Well, I remember the Ernest T. and Leon, you know, when they played in the middle of it.
Yeah,
or Bob Wills would do that, you know, make comment all the way through their song and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. But I did get to be friends with a lot of the old Texas Playboys, Bob Wills Band, and then also I was in the fiddle contest world too, where there were fiddle contests all over the United States, almost like a rodeo circuit. So we'd all head to a fiddle contest somewhere, and after that one was over, we'd jump in the car and go to the next one and the next one, and it was great fun, and a lot of my buddies, we all learned together, and so coming to Texas was a big game changer. The folks I met and the connections I made, and I came down here the last time I came for a visit, and a buddy of mine, Dale Morris Jr., said, "Hey, why don't you come down and sit in with our band? We're playing at this place called the Chip Inn, which I think is Hoots now. It's on 1187, just outside, I guess, over kind of by Rendon."
Oh, I know where. Yeah, Hoots. That is. I know where exactly it is. I was thinking west, but it's actually east of the highway.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And so I went and sat in just for fun. And the band leader said, "Well, hey, I really like your fiddle playing. Too bad you don't live around here because there was twin fiddles in the band, and the other fiddle player was moving to Houston." He said, "Well, we would hire you in the band if you lived here." And I said, "Are you serious about that?" And he said, "Absolutely." So I thought about it a few days, called my folks back home, and said, "I think I'm going to stay out here for a while." Never went back.
Never went back. As I always make jokes about this, but is there such a thing as Oregon music or Idaho music? I mean, you say Texas music, everybody knows exactly what you're talking about, and they have it in their heads, the sound and the attitude, if you will, the atmosphere it brings. That's one of the best things I like about this state is its unique culture. Is that when I say I'm from Texas, there's a whole image of what that means, as opposed to if I said, well, I'm from Minnesota. Well, what does that mean? You're cold 9 months out of the year. That's what it means.
Hey, that's why I'm here, buddy.
So how long have you done this? It sounds like you've been doing this more than a day, you might say.
Well, I started playing when I was 11 or 12 years old.
So about 20 years, you're saying then.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But my dad was really interested in traditional music, bluegrass, old-time fiddle music, Western swing, and then he liked to sing old pop songs, Ain't She Sweet, and All of Me, and those sorts of things.
Oh, yeah.
And so when I got to be 11 or 12 years old, my dad had guitars and banjos and mandolins around the house. So I got started actually playing the guitar, the mandolin, the tenor banjo, and the tenor guitar all at the same time because we had those around the house. And I thought, well, I'll probably settle on one. And it turns out I never did settle on one. I kept, learning on all of them. And now I'm really happy I did.
Well, which one do you primarily play?
Nowadays, I primarily play rhythm guitar. And but the rhythm guitar style that I play is it's a pretty advanced way of playing. A lot of passing chords, a lot of intricate right hand stuff, and then so what I do, my job as a rhythm guitar player, number one is to keep the rhythm, and so so I'm the drummer, I'm the rhythm guitar player, and I've got bass lines mixed in there, and so it's a challenging sort of style of rhythm guitar to play, and so that's what I'm doing mostly. But for many years I was a fiddle player, and played in bands all over the United States, and like I said, 200 or 300 fiddle contests probably over the years.
Well, so you spent a lot of time on the road. That must be pretty tiring, if nothing else. But I guess the performance always adrenalizes you and gets you out of the hotel bed or out of the backseat of the car to go do it, right?
Yeah, I don't think I had sense enough to be tired. I mean, we went. I mean, we'd go play all day and then jam all night and have a ball and do it the next day and the next day and for many years. And I don't do quite as much of that nowadays, but I still play all the time, and it's the only job I've ever had.
You never had a real job, so to speak, huh?
Exactly. When I was in junior high school, I had the opportunity to to play at Deluxe Billiards in McMinnville, Oregon. And my dad knew the owner, and he said, well, why don't you bring your boy down here and play for some event, birthday party or something. And I think I got paid $25.
It's a lot of money back then, I'm sure, for a 13-year-old boy.
Oh, yeah. Especially back in the 1800s.
Yeah, betcha. Yeah, back when they paid you in wampum, I guess. But you know, what your story reminds me of is something I saw in a documentary about Elvis. You know, that he and Jerry Lee Lewis and Johnny Cash and Carl Perkins would play their gigs, pile in a car, drive all night to the next one. Is that kind of what we're talking about here?
Absolutely. A lot of all-night drives. And, you know, and sometimes people would sleep a little bit, but usually we were, like, we'd play music all day, get in the car and drive for hours talking about music all the way there. So I'm not very well-rounded.
Well, that's fine. Well, but also, you know, from what I've seen of the origins of this kind of music is that like Hank Williams and Bob Wills and Spade Cooley and all these, that's the way, that's the life, you know, and they were drawing on a lot of sources other than just country. They also do a lot of Delta blues songs and whatnot. And my friends think I'm a little odd because I like that kind of music too, but that's fine. Anyway, but I'm just saying that, you know, that seemed like the life for a young man.
Well, I'll tell you, you know, I always loved the music of people that were much older than I was. You know, when I was a little kid, I had an aunt in Wichita, Kansas, and she said, have you heard of Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys? I said, well, I've heard of him, and I think had heard San Antonio Rose probably. And she said, well, I'm going to give you a record. And, you know, and I like this record, and you might like it, because I was just getting started playing. And I took it home, took the album out, put it on my record player, and I sat on the edge of my bed holding the cover in my hands and listening to it, and that moment literally changed my life.
It's amazing, just a small little gesture like that can do that for you.
It's an incredible, you know, and I've had a few little things like that have happened that were real game changers in my life, and so since that day, there's not too many days since then that I haven't listened to a little Bob Wills every day, and But you know, all the traveling and all the playing, and that's kind of the way those guys did it in the old days. You know, even the big bands, they'd go play a show, and then they'd go to a nightclub and play all night. And boy, do you get good doing that.
Yes, you do.
And that's a thing that's a little bit, it doesn't happen as often as it used to.
Well, yeah, all that repetition and practice, no doubt. You know, but I just think, boy. That's at 61, like I am, I'd probably be exhausted after a week of that. But I guess when you're 22 or something like that, you can do that for months.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's just that we were all hungry. I mean, we were hungry to learn this music. We were hungry to travel. We were hungry to see a little bit of the world and develop as a musician. And the thing about the old guys is that they had a attitude about their music that if you're going to do it well. And they worked very, very hard on their craft. And you know, back in the old days, if you wanted to get in a big band or you wanted to get in a touring Western swing band, you had to be able to play.
Right.
And those guys, when they would make a record, they'd go in the studio and knock a record out in an evening because they're so practiced up. It's not like, okay, well, we're on the 6th take of this song. It was the first take, and then they're on to the second take, the second song, and one take on that, and then they're done, you know, make a record. And nowadays, I heard somebody, an interview on the radio, they said, well, we had to make our record pretty fast. We didn't have a whole lot of money to work with, so we had to finish the whole record in 40 days.
40 days, you can make 40 albums back then.
That's right.
You know, it's very apparent what you're saying, though. If you want to get the respect of your peers, you better be able to bring the game to them.
Absolutely. And growing up, that's pretty much what drove me is I wanted my mentors and my heroes to think that I was good too. And that they would respect my playing. And so you know, and a lot of those old guys, if you didn't do something right, they were real quick to tell you.
Right. I'm sure they would, in very frank terms, no doubt.
And absolutely, you know, like, what the heck was that supposed to be? And you know, so it kind of snaps you to, and but I never took offense to any of that. You know, it's just kind of the way it was. It was a little tough love. And, you know, on the other hand, they could have said, oh, son, you're doing great. Everything's fine. You don't have anything to work on. You're already great. Well, that's not helpful. You know, it's helpful when somebody says, hey, you know, you're doing great, but you could work on this and you know, learn these skills and so as a teacher now, that's kind of the way I teach too, you know, and I think the old ways often are the best.
Well, you know, from what I've read, and I like to read history books, so obviously people that know me that, and I also read history of music. And from what I've read, you know, the proficiency and skill of these Western swing bands matched anything that Benny Goodman was doing or Duke Ellington was doing, whatever else. You know, even it may be down home country music kind of stuff for regular folk, these boys could play. And that's what I got the sense from just talking to you right now, that these guys were genuine musical talents, not just a bunch of cowboys that were passing time.
Oh, absolutely. You're so right about that, Brad. You know, like for instance, Bob Wills, who's, you know, in Western swing, that band's my, you know, it's number one, and it's a long ways down before you get to who's going to be number two. But, you know, those guys, they just put so much work into what they did, and everything dialed in incredible.
Well, who would you say would be number two then? If I know, they call Bob Wills the king for a reason, but who'd you put as number two?
You know, I really couldn't say, but
there's a bunch, I bet.
And there's a lot, you know, and some of the old bands, you know, actually Bob had brothers that had bands, and one of his brothers, Billy Jack Wills, it's some of my favorite Western swing music, and so good. And those guys, you know, back to what you were saying, they you listen to their arrangements and you go, well, this is like what Benny Goodman's doing, but it's on fiddles and guitars and steel guitars and horns. And in one story I thought was interesting, one of my all-time heroes on the guitar is a fellow named Eldon Shamblin, who played with Bob Wills for many years. And he was a business manager for the band too, and they were playing in Los Angeles, and Benny Goodman was playing down the street, and they went down he walked down and said, you know, boys, went to Benny's show. They got about 600 in there, and we've got 1,200 playing like a block away from each other. But Bob was so hot back in those days when Western music or Western movies were hot, and Western TV shows, and the kids all were dressing up like cowboys. And
well, he used to come down to Fort Worth quite a bit, you know, and I'm looking at some of the songs I have on my list, you know, and I have several by Light Crust Doughboys, which has been around in various incarnations for a long time. They were started as a backup band to a governor's campaign. I'm sure you know the story, but maybe the folks at home don't. Back to Pappy O'Daniel, which a very entertaining governor, you might say. But they have some really just fun songs. That's another thing about it. A lot of these songs are fun. They're not just, you know, weepy love songs or whatever else. And whatever. Another big fan of mine, I don't know if you call it swing as much, but it certainly is a classic, is Hank Williams. And I have several of those.
Timeless music.
Yes. Jambalaya is one of the best songs ever. I also have here, I'm looking on my list, some Merle Haggard, some Carter Family, which, you know, one time I told somebody, hey, I got hooked on the Carter Family. I got about 10 of their songs. And like, how old are you? You know, 110? But, you know, but good music will transcend all generations in time.
Yeah, if it was ever good, you know, I mean, you know, like Western swing, I always say that it was so cool back in the day, and there's other music that was cool back in the day, and I think if it was ever cool, it's still cool.
It is.
But sometimes it's just not out there for people to hear, and when they get the opportunity to hear it, they often love it, you know, and now you're starting to see these Western swing bands springing up, not only in Texas, but all over the United States, and really good stuff in places where you wouldn't necessarily expect it.
It's interesting also, a lot of people confuse Western swing with bluegrass, and because it's similar musician styles, I suppose.
Yes, they do, yes.
But, if you listen to it enough, you know the difference. But do you ever get asked to play bluegrass?
Yeah, and when I was a kid, I played a lot of bluegrass.
Bill Monroe in that crowd?
Absolutely. Got to know Bill Monroe.
Really?
Yeah.
He was known to be very strict with his band. Is that true?
He was a cantankerous old guy.
Yeah, that's what I always read.
And he liked it his way. And
isn't that why Earl Scruggs and Lester Flatt said we're going our own way?
they said we're starting our own thing.
Yeah.
We had enough of Bill, but
Yeah.
but no, I played a lot of bluegrass because that was the popular acoustic music in the Northwest U.S. back when I was a kid.
Right.
Not much Western swing, and although I did meet a few that had played with Bob Wills, and like Tiny Moore was a California guy, and some of those some other friends from California that that did that.
Well, as far as Bob Wills, also, I have met his granddaughter and his great granddaughter, and they keep his memory alive. That fiddle contest in Turkey, and here I'm wearing one here is in Greenville, wearing the shirt that you did. You have a Greenville fiddling contest, don't you?
We do, we do. It's a really nice event. I think this year is going to be the 8th annual.
When is it?
It's usually the first weekend in November.
Okay.
Or the last weekend in October. I'm thinking this year it's the first week in November. And my wife and I founded that event, and we had the idea to put on a big fiddle contest initially, and because we were complaining about some of the fiddle contests. Well, that's not as good as it used to be, and so finally it's like, well, put up or shut up. So we had connections. We'd played at the Greenville Municipal Auditorium, knew the city manager and city attorney. And so we called the city manager one day and said, hey, you want to hook up for lunch and want to throw something by you? And so we met and we drew up a few scenarios, and he said, man, I love it. Big fiddle contest, big prize money, very quality event and with great sound in a nice room. And then he said, well, what if we even expanded it into a festival? I said, well, we're friends with Carolyn Wills, Bob's daughter, who lives down around Alvarado, Texas.
Right.
And maybe we could get the Bob Wills Heritage Foundation to sign off on that. And so Carolyn was in love with the idea, and she's been a huge help with the festival since the very earliest days. And so here we are now. We've had the Time Jumpers, which is with Vince Gill in the band. That's a Nashville Western swing band, and it's all superstar musicians that love Western swing. And so they said, they started out at the Station Inn in Nashville, which is a kind of a divey little bar that everyone loves, and after a while of playing there just for fun to get their Western swing fix on Monday nights, then people started piling in there, and they eventually outgrew the place, and now they're at a place called Third and Lindsley in Nashville, which is much larger. And so anyway, we've had them come out, Sleep at the Wheel.
Yeah, that's one of my very favorites. I really do like their music. They have done tremendous work at keeping Western swing prominent.
Yes, they have. In the times where it was pretty lean, they kept it going, and we all owe them a big debt of gratitude for that.
Oops. That phone, I left my phone on the volume, so I do that sometimes. Well, you mentioned Vince Gill, and we mentioned Ray Benson from Sleep at the Wheel. You sent us some photographs. I'd like to show the audience here, because apparently you've met everybody and then some. So
met a few of them.
Yeah, it's like, here you go, ZZ Top. That's Dusty Hill? Or
no, that's Billy Gibbons.
Billy Gibbons, okay,
yes.
Yeah. All right, so there you go, Billy Gibbons.
And the fellow on the left is Sid Bernstein, and he actually brought the Beatles to the United States.
Really?
And if you look at the Shea Stadium poster, it says a Sid Bernstein production.
How about that?
And nicest guy in the world. This was taken in Manhattan. We were all there to see Les Paul on his birthday.
Les Paul, the great electric guitar player, inventor, Les Paul brand is...
Changed the world.
Well, it's like the really smart guys play Les Paul. Here's another one. I did not recognize who you're with here.
That's Les Paul.
That's Les Paul, okay.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, my guitar playing friends, like Les Paul. I mean, he's like, who doesn't know Les Paul? But but people really should understand just what he did for electric music.
Oh, a lot of people just think that he had endorsed a guitar, but he actually invented the solid body electric guitar, and that guitar is in the Country Music Hall of Fame, and then he invented multi-track recording.
Really?
So absolutely, he was the guy that did that.
I didn't know that.
And he had, I think, over 100 patents.
No doubt. And there's a couple others, a bunch of others. When you first showed me that picture, or at least your wife sent it to me, at first I thought that was Don Carter, who was still in the Mavericks. I thought,
yeah.
And I thought, no, that's George Jones. What's the matter with me?
That's on the set of the Marty Stewart television show that I think they still air them on RFD TV. But when I was with the Quaby Sisters band, we played that show 3 or I guess 4 times, and so this particular show was a We Love Connie Smith show, and that Connie Smith,
yes,
Marty's wife,
right,
and one of my all-time favorite singers, country singers, and so anyway, got to hang out with George Jones.
And then this George, who I think I've heard of him, George Strait or something like that.
Oh yeah. Nicest guy in the world, and we were asked by Connie Smith when she was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame to perform her song once a day at her induction ceremony.
Is that right?
And so when you're playing, it's called the Medallion Awards in Nashville at the Ford Theater. And so all the living Hall of Fame members are there, and they're wearing a medallion around their neck, and so we go out and we did our portion of the show. And when I was walking back out to my seat, George was sitting in the aisle, and he stuck his hand out and said, "Man, I really loved what you guys did, and it's a highlight of the evening for me." And I said, "Well, man, that's my highlight of the evening, And so we chatted for 5 minutes, and then he invited us to open his last show on his farewell tour in San Antonio for 85,000 people. His business manager called us the next week, and so George has been very nice to us.
No doubt. I mean, I've heard he's a really decent guy, really good guy. Who's this guy here?
That is Ed King.
Oh, from the late Ed King. He just passed away not too long ago.
Yes, Ed was a good friend of mine. And, it's funny, we got acquainted, and he was on the first 3 albums of Lynyrd Skynyrd. And he wrote Sweet Home Alabama, and he's playing that iconic guitar lick to start the song off. And we were playing the Grand Ole Opry, and Ed had seen us on the Marty Stewart show. And his wife said that when we came on, he got so excited he jumped up on the sofa and was jumping up and down.
He also was in Strawberry Alarm Clock, or one of these psychedelic bands in the late 60s, and then he goes to play for Lynyrd Skynyrd.
And he got in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame twice with Strawberry Alarm Clock and Lynyrd Skynyrd.
Just 2 very different styles of music. I always thought that was pretty interesting.
Well, and what I play and what Ed plays are such different styles of music, but he loved my guitar playing. And so he contacted the Opry and asked if he saw we were going to be there. And so he came down and came in my dressing room and introduced himself. And, man, we became fast friends after that. And he came out here to Burleson on my birthday one year and spent the weekend together, and a great guy that loved guitars. That guitar is his famous Les Paul that I think it sold for $650,000 after his death. And he had I collect guitars, and he had a really great, massive guitar collection.
Wow. No, he passed away about 6 months ago?
No, it's been longer than that. It's
Okay.
been about 3 or 4 years now.
Really? I
Yeah.
thought it was more recent. Oh, well, there you go.
Time flies.
And who are these hoodlums here?
Well, that's my current lineup.
All right.
And I think that's taken when we were just getting to a festival somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm on the left, and standing next to me is my partner in crime, Red Volkart, who actually just left my house to fly home this morning after a few gigs this weekend. And
You told me about him. He was Merle Haggard's guitarist.
he was for many years. He was in The Strangers with Merle Haggard, recorded with him and performed, and he was a Nashville session guitar player for years and years, and kind of the unofficial ambassador of Austin, Texas,
Yeah.
for 20 years, and he moved a couple years ago to Galax, Virginia, and he's a Grammy winner and great guy, and he's known for playing the Telecaster, and he's like a master of that. And then standing next to him is Matthew Mefford, who's been in the Western Flyers now for 5 years. He's the upright bass player, and one of my closest friends in this world, and a phenomenal bass player. And before he joined the band, he was in England playing country music and Western swing, and when he got back stateside, I called him right up.
Is there an audience for that in England, is there?
What's that?
Is there an audience for Western Swing in England?
There is. There is. In fact, it's amazing. I've toured in England many times, and I think sometimes they're more knowledgeable about the music than the average American is.
Well, that shouldn't surprise me because you look at the history of the Beatles and Rolling Stones and how they took from American music. All the stuff that they lifted, if you want to call it that. But, and how even now, Keith Richards talks about black blues and stuff like that for, and very knowledgeable and very excited about it, even now at 80, 110, whatever old he is.
Well, when we first went over there, I'm thinking, well, I hope people come to our shows, because we were unknown there, and every show was packed. And people afterwards would come up, and they knew like Western swing, and they knew the songs, and they knew who played guitar on the song and who played the bass and all the instruments, and really refreshing to see.
How about that? And then you got your mascot here. I mean, look, he's a young kid.
I call him the Boy Wonder.
Yeah.
And because he kind of is, he's not a boy anymore. He just turned 20 years ago, but he was a longtime student of mine who's now, doing his own thing and taking off and just, I think not just because he's in my band, I think he's the best Western swing fiddle player in the United States.
What's his name again?
His name's Ridge Roberts, and he lives in Granbury, Texas. And great singer, also plays really good guitar, and just a great kid. And his family are some of our very closest friends, and it's just a pleasure working with Ridge and all these guys. We all invest in the music, and so they're willing to work, and we get all the details when we are going through that stuff.
And we got here on this photo.
Well, that's me on the left, and Vince Gill next to me.
That's what I thought.
And my good friend Laura White, who was one of my earliest fiddle students when I still lived in Oregon 30-something years ago. And then she moved to Nashville at the invite of Roy Acuff.
Roy Acuff, wow.
And her first gig was with Patty Loveless when she was absolutely white hot on the country music scene, and played with so many others. And then her husband, Jeff White, another close friend of ours. They're like family. And Jeff plays in Vince Gill's band. He plays with Lyle Lovett and in the large band, and also in a small band. And they were just through Dallas not long ago. And he's played with the Chieftains. And
The Chieftains, really?
Yeah, yeah.
Isn't that an Irish
Toured the
band?
world with them. Yeah,
Yeah.
Traditional Irish
Yeah,
band.
how about that?
And one of the greatest shows you'll ever see. I mean, it's absolutely phenomenal. The music, but they have dancers that come out.
And that would be?
Oh, well, that's Johnny Knoxville,
Yeah.
from Jackass fame. And, it's debatable who's the bigger jackass there. but-
Okay, fine. Yeah, I saw that for a moment. I thought, I didn't really recognize them. And then I thought that maybe that's why I love it. I don't know. It's been
Well,
a while since-
that was at the Ameripolitan Music Awards in Austin. Mm-hmm. And super good guy, kind of like you'd hope he would be.
Mm-hmm. Well, you sound like you've been around a bunch. Here's Warren Buffett. See, now, okay, when I saw this, like, is Warren Buffett into Western swing and whatnot?
Well, he is. I mean, it's not his main thing, but Warren is holding his ukulele there, and he's played the ukulele actively his whole life since he was in college. And he said he was learning to play the ukulele to pick up girls.
Well, yeah. Well, now he doesn't need the ukulele for that.
That's right.
He just shows them his checkbook.
Yeah. And that's taken in his office in Omaha, Nebraska, Berkshire Hathaway headquarters.
Yeah.
And we played, actually, Warren, I'll tell you a real quick story. I get a call one morning sitting at home reading the newspaper, drinking a cup of coffee, and it's Warren Buffett's personal secretary. And she says, well, we hear that you're coming up to play for the Berkshire Hathaway shareholders meeting, and Mr. Buffett was watching your videos, and since he saw your videos, we can't get him to do any work. That he's just watching videos all day, and he's a huge music fan. And she said, Mr. Buffett wanted to know if you might be able to do a song together. And I said, well, heck yeah. So she said, well, I'll have him call you in about 10 minutes if that's okay. So I said, great. So I hung up and I thought, well, this day's taken an interesting turn.
Yeah, you didn't expect that waking up in the morning.
And so I get a call and it's the secretary again. And she said, well, here's Mr. Buffett. And he comes on the phone. He says, Joey, you think we can pull this thing off? And I said, absolutely, we can pull it off. And he said, well, what song should we do? And we went down through a few, and he said, Red River Valley. And I said, well, yeah, that'd be a good one. So I said, what key do you do it in? And he said, well, I don't really know. He knows the chords, but he doesn't know the names of any of them. So I said, well, if I heard you do it, then I could figure out what key it is, and I'll come up with an arrangement. So he says, well, let me get my ukulele out. So he sets the phone down, clunk, 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 and then you hear him opening his ukulele case, and he says, can you hear me? Can you hear me? I said, yeah, I can hear you. And so he starts singing Red River Valley over the phone, and I figured out the key and did an arrangement, and so we did that together, and I don't think I've ever had so many photographers. I've never seen that many in my life.
I bet.
From all over the world. And then we went back a couple of years later. They called and said, hey, you may have heard Mr. Buffett bought Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad.
Oh, yeah, just woke up that morning and wrote a check.
Yeah. He liked trains, so he bought a railroad. And he wanted to know if you guys could do together. I've been working on the railroad. And so I worked it up, and we went back up there, and but a nice man, and so humble. His office looks like 1970.
Yeah, I've heard that he's really not very ostentatious, as they say, with his money. He lives in a decent house, but a good-sized house in Omaha, but not the biggest one. And
he's lived in that same house since the 50s.
Yeah, it's like he's you really wouldn't know it if you just ran into him and didn't know who he was.
Absolutely.
But while you were there, while you're playing, did you ask for stock tips or anything like that?
No, I didn't. But I should have.
Well, anyway, and this one?
Well, to Western swing fans, this is kind of like Elvis. That's Leon Roush.
Yes.
And Leon was from Fort Worth here, and he was the voice of the Texas Playboys for many years. And that great album, that first album that I was given, still my favorite Bob Wills album, is called For the Last Time, and he was the featured singer on there, along with a few cuts by Merle Haggard and Leon McAuliffe.
Yeah.
and Jody Nix also, and he was a kiddo on that album. But
Yeah.
Leon worked with us several times with the Western Flyers, and he always said, you know what, you're not the biggest band I ever played with, but we were one of the best, and he really enjoyed playing with us. And of course, we were on cloud nine every time we could have him. And
You betcha. I mean, that'd be like having Sinatra come and playing at your gig or something like that in the Western swing world.
it
Leon Rausch.
really is, and,
Yeah,
and
it's a big
he's
deal.
and he's that kind of a singer too. I mean, a just unbelievable natural voice, and a voice that really everybody tries to emulate in Western swing, including myself.
Yeah, yeah. I have many recordings, of the standard Bob Wills, and there's Leon singing. Oh, and there's a nice publicity photo of y'all.
Yeah, that was taken in the Fort Worth Stockyards, and with myself with the guitar, Ridge Roberts on the fiddle, Matthew Mefford on the bass, and often we play as a trio, and then occasionally we have Red Volkart on the guitar, and we also have a friend, Paul Glass, that plays electric mandolin out of Austin that plays with us once in a while.
Well, any more pictures, Taylor? Yeah, James Taylor and Garth Brooks in this picture.
Yes, that was taken at the Country Music Hall of Fame inductions, and actually a girl I went to high school with is a huge James Taylor fan, and she sent me an email and said, OMG, I went to James Taylor's website and there's a photo of you there with James. So that's Garth Brooks on the left, and James, and again, two people that you sometimes they say, you meet your heroes and you're disappointed,
Right.
They're not so nice, and those two couldn't have been nicer. And
I've heard that. You obviously Kelly Clarkson's from here, and I saw her in an interview saying she's a whole lot more comfortable with the country music crowd than she is with the pop crowd. A lot of divas and a lot of egos in the pop, rock music world. Whereas when she does country music and whatnot, or country music awards, whatever, the people is like family getting back together again. I've heard that many times that it really is, a mutual supportive society almost.
it is. They're welcoming, like the first time we played the Grand Ole Opry.
Oh boy, that was great. The old one or the new one?
The new one,
Right.
which actually has been the Grand Ole Opry now longer than the Ryman was.
Yeah, but the old timers remember the Ryman.
No,
Yeah.
I still call it the new place, but yeah, we played there first. Then we got to do the Opry. They have usually in the summertime they'll have or either the summer or the winter. They have about a 3-month run where they move the Opry to the Ryman.
Yeah.
and so got to play it there a few times, and that. The Opry means so much to me as a musician.
Hey,
So
a lot
many
of
of my
people.
heroes, and it was a dream come true to get to be a part of that.
Well, we're running close on time, so you got any gigs coming up?
Well, actually, we do. We're kind of wrapping up gigs here in Texas, and then we head to the West Coast, and we home base out there. My wife Sherry and I have a house out there, and little house. And so we have the band comes out, and we've got runs from Northern California up into Washington, and
It's interesting you mentioned Northern California. People say California, they think San Francisco. My cousin does a lot of business, or did when he was in that field, agricultural field. There's a lot of Texans and Okies out there. A lot of country folk out in California, and I'm sure they love your music.
absolutely a lot of folks from Oklahoma, Arkansas, the Midwest moved to California and brought the music with them, and
That Bakersfield sound, and all the
yes,
Buck Owens, and
absolutely, and even Los Angeles, had a lot of country music back in the day.
where anything local coming up?
I don't think so. I think we've got private local gigs, but they're private until we head out.
Okay, where do you normally play on public venues around this area?
Well, we just played a venue that we love in Fort Worth called The Post.
Oh yeah, I've heard of it. Sure,
Yeah,
yes,
and
of
it's an
course.
old post office, and up in the northeast side of Fort Worth. Wonderful venue, just a beautiful room, and they also have usually 2 stages. They've got the inside main stage, and then they have a stage outside with a patio. and great food. Just a beautiful venue.
A couple of our local folks play there. Susie Morgan, Brock
Yes.
Wald. They've played there before too. I'm sure the Dolan Band. I bet they played there before. I just went blank just for a second. But we've had some. The Post is getting to be well known.
Yeah, as it should be. We need more places like the Post.
Yes, we
in
do.
North Texas that you can go hear quality music in a nice environment, and they have a wonderful sound man. You can practice and you can work on your stuff, till you got every I dotted and T crossed. And if you go and the sound person that's, mixing your sound doesn't do a good job, well, then you're not going to sound good. So they have a top notch. They do it all right there.
You do. I know you did Granbury because we talked about that before down at that opera house they have, and
Granbury Live Theater.
yeah, and
Nice place.
Well, we got to do this again because there's still a lot of questions. A lot of questions I'd ask that more interesting to me maybe, but like what is life on the road like, and all this other kind of detail and
Deep thoughts.
Yeah, no, I have deep thoughts. But thank you for coming. Taylor, do we have that MP3 hooked up? Okay, hang on. There it is. Okay. All right. We got Sherry sent me this MP3, so we're going to go out on that. So,
All right.
Thank you very much,
Brad, thanks for having me. It was a super blast. And looking forward to doing it again one day.
I could do it, anytime. We'll figure that out later. But it's been great. This is something I've really been interested in, is the history of music as such. And the emotions it brings forth. I mean, and the timelessness of it.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you, Taylor, for your wizardry on the computer, because we kept you kind of busy.
Yeah, Taylor.
Anytime.
All right. And thank you, Joey. It's been an honor to have you on the show.
Thanks, Brad.
All right. We'll just let you listen on the way out, guys.
Oh, pardon me, stranger, I hope there's no danger. You'll think I'm getting off of my range. Oh, but I calculate that you're from my state, and though you may think it's strange, allowing is how you're from Texas. You speak the lingo that I understand. I'd bet my kale that you hail from Texas. There's no mistaking the brand. You've got a smile like 2 acres of sunflowers. Your eyes are blue bonnet blue. Shake hands, it's grand that you're from Texas, 'cause I'm from Texas too. Yes, I'm